It is okay if you don't like the sound of my voice. My voice changes. It's actually, for the last several days, been very different in here than it's been out there. Something has me on more yang out there, and so my vocal range is very different. And when I'm outside, maybe on the train, or when I used to be able to ride my bike before somebody slashed my bike tire, I used to have a different experience. My voice changes, and I know that, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with my hormone production and the fact that I'm being manipulated because these currents and the backing coding they got on all my electronic accounts actually alternates my hormone production. As a matter of fact, in April through May of 2019, I was in synergy with somebody who was investigating the manipulation of hormone production, specifically how certain levels of progesterone are produced in women versus men, and that this was a means by which they were actually torturing people, including people that had minor daughters. Because at a certain level of hormone production, specifically, I believe, of progesterone, there is a more masculine response. And somebody came up with a electronic slash biological weapons paradigm where they would send an image or they would trigger a memory of a young girl, including a young girl. It could be somebody's daughter, maybe their sister, someone they cared about. It could potentially even be a student if you're a teacher. And then in the course of that, would start broadcasting imagery of her being sexually violated and or being subjected to some sort of pain or some sort of torment. And this was geared toward and generated toward a male, I believe, or at least a particular level of maturation in consciousness that also correlated with what would have otherwise been normal hormone production, in order to see how psychologically that person would respond to witnessing that young girl being tortured. And they were monitoring the level of hormone production. That there's something actually about a particular cycle of hormone production that simulates hormone ranges that have a particular resonance with a kind of comfort that would come from somebody who loves somebody, like their daughter, or maybe their sister, or their little female cousin. And it being something that brings them pleasure because she's happy and she's running around or she's talking to them about something, but then something triggers him. And in the course of being triggered, it could be anything, including seeing her be subjected to pain on another level or hearing what you're programming her to talk about. Well, this 5, 6, 7 year old girl is talking about these things that are completely fucking inappropriate. And not only that, you're bringing her physical discomfort in front of them. And you're also projecting this imagery of torture and torment. And you want to see how daddy responds. That's part of your daddy girl paradigm. Because at a certain point, his hormones are going to start activating. And if he doesn't give in to your completely disgusting, depraved sexualization of his own fucking daughter, then what's he gonna do? That's your sadism. That's your fucking bullshit ideation that you're doing some kind of fucking research. You torture people's children in front of them to fuck with their hormones. And the point you want is to get them to a point where they're either physically disabled. You've given them diabetes. You've given them a broken bone because they get so stressed out and they fall down or have an accident. Or they end up having some sort of outburst because you're torturing people. They can see it, including them. And then somebody says, well, you've made a disturbance. You're a harm to people. You need psychological counseling. And then you go in for psychological counseling and all you get is a bunch of juiced up fucking Nazis sitting around fucking hedging futures for their fucking disgusting fake broker friends. I saw it. Now, it's this ironic thing because on one level, somebody's investigating this from a perspective of it being a fucking crime. And they're identifying how a man, especially a man that would be in a paternal role, who has a beautiful young daughter and is watching her being tortured, is going to respond. What are going to be his priorities? Is he going to try to talk the little girl through something? Is he going to go try to seek support? Is he going to project his frustration and rage onto the little girl, and then it compounds things, and then his hormones change in a different way? What can you do with him biophysiologically that gets him to produce hormones at a certain level that meets the fucking market indicators at the time you're torturing him while you're dumping stock? Because that's ultimately how disgustingly depraved you assholes are. That's what you want. You want a couple of people you've hooked up that you can cycle through that. They got all these other things hooked up. It could have been their past human capital. They were actually very productive. They had a lot to offer. But you can't let them actually run their own fucking life. So you get your little Nazi friends in their so-called biomed sector. You get their friends and their so-called fucking lawyers to hook up a bunch of fucking secret deals. You get your fucking friends in finance to come up with some reason to find some old fucking file about how they didn't pay a credit card or they didn't pay a loan. And you put that shit together and you got your special purpose vehicle, don't you? And you got more and more and more because you're so fucking profligate, you can't keep track of the people you were torturing 10 years ago. You can't fucking make it with 5 years ago. You need more and more and more fucking people signed up to be tortured because that's how fucking incompetent you are, even with your torture economy. At some point, if you've been subjected to that hormone harvesting long enough, your body does not produce natural hormones. You no longer produce what a normal woman would produce at that age. You no longer produce what a normal man would produce at that age. And it's abso-fucking-lutely intentional. I believe it's intentionally genocidal. There are certain people that have certain genotypes you don't want fucking breeding. And if they are allowed to procreate, you want to be the determinant. You want to know, you want to be able to decide who they fuck to reproduce with. You want to crossbreed them with somebody in order to get a specific genetic mix. And you literally make it political. You literally make genetic engineering and torturing people regarding genetic engineering part of some bullshit concept of restitution. They have these cases in California's district court in the South. They had lists of people that were accused of child sex predation that were required to have their DNA input and tested. We're not talking about testing their DNA to confirm that they had actually been involved in the sexual violence. We weren't talking about that kind of sexual violence. They took child molesters, people they accused of child molesting, and harvested their fucking DNA. And they've hooked up an economy where they use harvested fucking DNA as compensation. Why would you compensate somebody that's been violated or abused with the goddamn DNA of their abuser? You're not being ironic. It's not camp. You're not flipping it in any fucking way. You went way, way, way too far. I saw you do it. I saw you, and you analyzed it, and you created a medication with it. At a certain level, you try to justify, well, we have to do this because we're doing these experiments, and we want to help people, and we want people to heal. And so we're making these medications, and this kind of hormone production can, blah, 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 blah. No, you don't get the fucking funding, and you don't get the grant approved unless somebody else is able to make political utility out of that. I saw you do it. And I believe that's exactly the kind of shit you're doing with this alleged COVID-19 vaccine. You had this whole year where all of these people that should otherwise have been shut down for how they orchestrated the opiate epidemic in order to set up benchmarks to flip, ended up getting all kinds of things waived off and all kinds of special contracts that we in this country are supposed to pay for. Unfortunately, it seems now, with our literal fucking hormones, because you won't let us have fucking jobs to make money. And then they're going to do what? That's literally, it seems, all you're doing. You took certain people that were not genetically qualified as demonstrated through their behavioral cues to demonstrate submission. And then you decided you're going to put us away and harvest us for our fucking hormones. Because some people get that fucking hormone fucking ping. They get pinged with the other side. They get the fucking back end coding that feels all good. They're all happy. They're whatever it is that speaks to them specifically. Whether it be some hallelujah, whether it be some sort of ascension, whether it be channeling their inner goddess energy. And as long as they don't bitch about all the deals you hook up on them when they orgasm, you might let them keep getting that good telemedication. And the rest of us are harvested. And the problem is the disparity in the standard of living is so fucking extreme. That's literally the way it goes. You literally break it down to behavioral conditioning based on food choice access. That food has an impact on people biophysiologically and the kinds of hormones and the kinds of other sorts of enzymes they produce. And you fucking know it. What nobody's talking about is how we get the food, where the food comes from. If you harvest certain women's hormones for too long, you don't even get fucking food. You don't get food. The flowers don't fucking bloom. If you keep 5G in everybody's vagina into whatever you consider to be commerce, you don't get bees. You can't even pollinate the flowers if they fucking open. That's what you're doing.